What do you mean your kind doesn't live here? The words hung in the late afternoon air like smoke as Marcus Bennett
Your
stood
kind doesn't
frozen
live
beside
here.
the moving truck, the cardboard box still balanced in his arms.
You don't belong here,
Neighbors
Darius.
pausing mid-step to
going
stare,
anywhere.
while
Marlene,
Denise
please.
Harper,
This isn't
president of the Willow Creek HOA, tightened her grip on her clipboard and repeated herself louder this time. I said this community has standards, her smile thin and rehearsed, and we don't tolerate confusion
I said
about
this
residency.
community has standards.
Marcus felt the heat rise behind his ears, but kept his posture straight, the key to his brand-new home pressing into his palm like an anchor as children on bicycles slowed down and curtains shifted across the street. The humiliation sharp but controlled inside his chest, because this was supposed to be the day his mother cried tears of pride watching her son unload furniture into the first house he'd ever owned, not the day he was interrogated on his own driveway. Denise stepped closer, heels clicking against concrete, demanding to see proof of purchase as if the closing documents in Marcus's folder were counterfeit, her voice rising just enough to gather an audience. We've had incidents before,
Marcus, I
she
hope
added
this document
vaguely,
isn't a counterfeit.
eyes scanning
It's
him
not,
in a way
I
that
swear.
made the meaning clear without needing explanation, and the silence from the onlookers felt heavier than her words. Marcus inhaled slowly, refusing to match her volume, explaining he had closed 2 days ago and had already emailed the required paperwork. But Denise cut him off with a dismissive wave, announcing she would be contacting the board and possibly the proper authorities, because something about this didn't sit right with her. And that was when phones began to appear subtly in neighbors' hands, angled but not yet obvious, recording what everyone could feel turning ugly. The moving crew shifted awkwardly, unsure whether to continue unloading as Denise declared she had the power to block access until she verified his credentials, a phrase that made Marcus's jaw tighten
I have the
because
right
he was
to
a
block
software
access until I
engineer with a
verify your
master's
credentials.
degree,
This is
a clean
ridiculous. You
record,
can't do
I
this.
can
and
and
a
I
mortgage
will.
approved by the same bank half the neighborhood used. Yet none of that seemed to matter in this moment where perception was louder than paperwork. He handed her a copy of the deed without trembling, his voice steady even as his stomach churned. And she barely glanced at it before claiming the HOA had not yet approved his membership transfer, implying his presence was premature, unauthorized, unwelcome, and the crowd's murmurs began shifting from curiosity to discomfort as an elderly neighbor whispered, "He's got a sold sign on the lawn, Denise." But she ignored it, doubling down with the confidence of someone used to never being challenged. What Denise didn't realize was that Marcus had spent the last 6 months researching Willow Creek's bylaws after hearing rumors about selective enforcement, and tucked inside that same folder was a printed copy of the state licensing requirements for HOA board members, requirements Denise herself had quietly lobbied to weaken the previous year. And as she threatened fines for non-compliance, Marcus calmly asked her a single question that sliced through her momentum. "Before you cite authority, can you confirm your certification is current?" The shift was subtle at first, a flicker across her face, a pause too long to ignore, and the neighbors felt it, that hairline fracture in her certainty, because Denise had indeed let her HOA management license lapse 3 months prior after failing to complete the mandatory ethics training mandated by the State Oversight Commission, a detail she assumed no one would notice. "That's irrelevant," she snapped, but her voice cracked just slightly, and Marcus, still composed, pulled out his phone and opened the public registry he had bookmarked weeks ago, turning the screen outward so the nearest neighbors could see the status clearly marked as expired, inactive, non-compliant. A ripple moved through the crowd like wind through tall grass as whispers grew sharper, more focused, no longer aimed at Marcus but at Denise. And suddenly the phones weren't angled at the newcomer with the moving truck, but at the HOA president whose authority was unraveling in real time. Denise's cheeks flushed as she insisted the renewal was processing. Yet an older man from across the street stepped forward, adjusting his glasses to look closer at the screen, confirming aloud that the expiration date had passed months ago, and the atmosphere changed completely. because now this wasn't about residency. It was about legitimacy. Marcus didn't smirk, didn't gloat, and he simply folded his deed back into the folder and said evenly, "You questioned whether I belong here. The real question is whether you still do." The words weren't shouted, but they carried, and Denise's shoulders stiffened as more neighbors began asking their own questions about overdue repairs, unexplained fee increases, selective warnings that seemed to target only certain households, and the power she had wielded so casually began slipping through her fingers like sand. Within 48 hours, a formal complaint was filed with the State Oversight Board citing unlicensed governance and discriminatory conduct, and within 2 weeks, an official notice arrived suspending Denise's authority pending investigation, her HOA license formally revoked for non-compliance and ethics violations. You're a decision posted publicly where every resident could see it. The day the letter was delivered, Marcus was planting shrubs along his walkway when a neighbor approached quietly to apologize for staying
Mark,
silent
we're sorry
that
for
first
staying
afternoon.
silent that afternoon.
And Marcus
I
simply
appreciate you
nodded,
saying that.
understanding that communities don't change in loud explosions, but in uncomfortable awakenings. Denise moved out by the end of the month, citing personal reasons, though the empty house across the street told a more complicated story about borrowed power and the cost of misusing it. One evening, as the sun dipped low and porch lights flickered on one by one, Marcus stood at the edge of his driveway, watching children race bicycles past his home without hesitation, without suspicion. Then he realized something steady and grounding in his chest. Sometimes the most powerful act isn't shouting back at someone who tries to diminish you. It's standing firm long enough for the truth to expose them. The house behind him glowed warm and certain, no longer questioned, no longer contested. And the neighborhood felt different now, quieter but more honest, because one careless sentence, "Your kind doesn't live here," had forced an entire community to confront who truly belonged and who had been pretending to decide. Subscribe for more chilling true crime stories.